He was charming, intelligent, and invisible to suspicion. But behind the bright smile and confident voice was a predator, one of the most notorious serial killers in American history. This is the true story of Ted Bundy, the charming killer. Born Theodore Robert Cowell on November 24, 1946, in Burlington, Vermont, Ted Bundy began life with a lie. He was born to a single mother, Eleanor Cowell, and raised believing his grandparents were his parents, and that his mother was his sister. This deception, some believe, helped form the cracks in his psyche. When Ted was a child, he showed signs of emotional detachment, lying and peeping into windows. But by all outward appearances, he was just an ordinary boy. As he grew older, he became well-dressed, polite, and charming, traits he would later use to mask unspeakable evil. Ted attended the University of Washington in Seattle, studying psychology. In college, he fell deeply in love with a young woman from California. She was beautiful, well-connected, and from a wealthy family. When she eventually broke up with him, Bundy was devastated. That heartbreak would become the blueprint for many of his future victims. Women with long, dark hair parted in the middle, just like her. In the early 1970s, young women began disappearing in the Pacific Northwest. At first, they were isolated incidents. A girl gone from campus, another vanished from a park. Then, in July 1974, in broad daylight, two women, Janice Ott and Denise Naslund, disappeared from Lake Sammamish State Park in Washington, hours apart. Witnesses recalled a handsome man with his arm in a sling, asking women for help loading a sailboat into his tan Volkswagen Beetle. That man was Ted Bundy. Bundy moved from state to state, murdering in Washington, Utah, Colorado, and Idaho. He lured women by faking injuries, using slings, crutches, or pretending to be a police officer. Once alone, he attacked them, bludgeoned, strangled, and sometimes sexually assaulted the bodies after death. He often returned to the bodies in remote areas, sometimes days later. It wasn't just murder, it was obsession, control, and necrophilia. He was finally arrested in Utah in 1975 after a routine traffic stop. Police found suspicious items in his car: a ski mask, handcuffs, a crowbar, rope, and an ice pick. Though initially arrested for attempted kidnapping, deeper investigations began to connect him to multiple missing women. But in 1977, while awaiting trial in Colorado, Bundy did the unthinkable. He escaped. In June 1977, during a court recess, Bundy jumped from a second-story window of a law library and vanished. He was recaptured, but 6 months later, he escaped again, this time through a hole in the ceiling of his jail cell. He fled to Florida, where his crimes would reach their horrifying peak. On January 15, 1978, Bundy broke into the Chi Omega sorority house at Florida State University. In less than 15 minutes, he bludgeoned and strangled 4 young women, killing 2 and brutally assaulting the others. Just weeks later, he abducted and murdered 12-year-old Kimberly Leach, his youngest known victim. By this time, Bundy was on the FBI's 10 Most Wanted list. He was finally arrested on February 15, 1978, after a traffic stop in Pensacola, Florida. The officer had no idea he had just captured one of the most prolific killers in American history. Ted Bundy was charged with multiple counts of murder and faced trial in Florida. His trials were broadcast on national television, the first of their kind. Viewers were stunned by Bundy's charisma, confidence, and arrogance. He chose to represent himself, cross-examining witnesses, including survivors. He treated the court like a stage. Despite overwhelming evidence, Bundy maintained his innocence. But in 1980, he was convicted of the Chi Omega murders and sentenced to death. Over the next 9 years, Bundy manipulated the legal system, filing appeals, giving interviews, and even marrying Carol Ann Boone in court, who later gave birth to his child. But as the clock ticked closer to his execution, Bundy began confessing. Just days before his death, he admitted to killing over 30 women, but experts believe the real number could be much higher. On January 24, 1989, Ted Bundy was executed in the electric chair at Florida State Prison. Outside the prison, crowds gathered, chanting, "Burn, Bundy, burn." He died at 7:16 a.m., leaving behind a legacy of horror, obsession, and fascination. Bundy's legacy. Bundy wasn't a monster in appearance. He was attractive, well-spoken, polished. But his crimes were as vile and disturbing as any in modern history. He shattered the myth that evil has a face. He was proof that monsters don't always hide in the dark. Sometimes they hold the door open, smile, and ask for help. His case transformed FBI profiling, inspired countless films and books, and left scars on families and investigators that may never heal. Thank you for watching the story of Ted Bundy, the charming killer. If this true crime documentary moved you, shocked you, or taught you something new, please subscribe, like, and share. Remember the victims, learn from the past, and always trust your instinct.